December 7th, 1941, 7:55 a.m. Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The first bomb hits before most sailors finish breakfast, then the second, then the third. Fire rolls across Battleship Row. The sky turns black. The harbor turns red. Across the Pacific, Japanese commanders are celebrating the greatest naval strike in modern history. But one man is not celebrating. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto sits alone in his quarters. He picks up a pen. He writes 7 words that will define the next 4 years of the war. We have awakened a sleeping giant. This is the man who planned Pearl Harbor, who ordered the strike, who sent the planes. And he already knows it was a mistake. Why? Because Yamamoto had been to America, not as a tourist, as a student. He studied at Harvard. He drove across the country. He walked through the steel mills of Pennsylvania. He stood inside the factories of Detroit and watched American workers produce things at a scale that made his blood run cold. He saw what Japan was about to fight. And he had been screaming about it for years. Not quietly, not in whispers, loudly, directly, to the most powerful men in Japan. Every single time they told him to sit down. He didn't sit down. That decision would cost him everything. Tokyo. Japan is about to sign an alliance with Germany, an alliance that puts Japan on a direct collision course with the United States. Yamamoto stands before the Naval General Staff and says what nobody wants to hear. If we fight America, he tells them, it will not be enough to take Guam. It will not be enough to take the Philippines. To win, we would need to march into Washington and dictate terms in the White House. Silence, then fury. Because Yamamoto isn't finished. That, he says, is impossible. Japan's oil will run dry. Japan's industry cannot match America's. Every month of war brings Japan closer to collapse, and America closer to full strength. The room turns on him. These are men who have built their entire identity on the invincibility of Japanese arms. Men who have assassinated officers for saying less. And here is Japan's most celebrated admiral telling them they are walking into a catastrophe. The death threats start almost immediately. They are credible enough that the Navy quietly moves Yamamoto out of Tokyo. Officially, a promotion. Command of the combined fleet at sea. In reality, they are keeping him alive. But even from his flagship, he keeps writing, keeps warning. He tells them Japan has 18 months of victories ahead. After that, he can guarantee nothing. 18 months, remember that number, because somewhere in Tokyo, without telling Yamamoto, the decision for war has already been made. The clock is already running. Yamamoto understands one thing with brutal clarity. Japan's only chance is to end this war before America's industry wakes up. Every operation he plans in 1942 has one goal: hit America so hard they negotiate instead of fight. He almost pulls it off. May 1942, the Coral Sea. Japanese and American carriers clash for the first time in history. Japan loses experienced pilots it cannot replace. Men who took years to train. 1 month later, Midway. Yamamoto sends 4 fleet carriers, 250 aircraft, and the heart of Japanese naval aviation into a single decisive battle. He wants to finish what Pearl Harbor started. For a few hours, it almost works. Then, American dive bombers find the Japanese fleet. Planes on deck, fully fueled, fully armed. In under 5 minutes, all 4 Japanese carriers are burning. 4 carriers? Gone. 250 aircraft? Gone. Hundreds of veteran pilots? Gone. You cannot replace men like that in months. You cannot replace them in years. Yamamoto knew it before the battle. He knew it after. The 18 months he promised ended in December 1942. Midway came in June. The clock ran out 6 months early. And the war Yamamoto had predicted was now running exactly on his schedule, not Japan's. His April 18th, 1943. Before dawn. Henderson Field, Guadalcanal. 16 P-38 Lightning fighters sit on a jungle airstrip, engines ticking in the early heat. The pilots have been briefed on a mission so secret that only a handful of people in the entire Pacific know it exists. Their target is not a ship, not a base. Their target is Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto. 3 days earlier, American Signals Intelligence intercepted a Japanese naval transmission. Same code, same channel. The code that Station Hypo cryptanalysts had been quietly reading for months. The message contained Yamamoto's complete inspection itinerary. His route, his aircraft, his departure time, his arrival time, down to the minute. The intercept went all the way to President Roosevelt. The order came back down. Get him. 9:34 a.m. 2 Japanese Betty bombers appear over the jungle of Bougainville Island, right on schedule, exactly where the intercept said they would be. 9 Zero fighters fly escort above them. In one of those Betty's sits Yamamoto, white uniform pressed, sword at his side, traveling with the same rigid punctuality that defined his entire career. That punctuality is about to kill him. The P-38s climb out of cloud cover. The Zeros see them too late. Lieutenant Rex Barber closes on the lead Betty and opens fire. Cannon rounds tear through the left engine. Smoke, then flame. The aircraft rolls hard, drops toward the jungle, hits the ground at full speed. No survivors. Japanese search parties find the wreckage the next morning. Yamamoto is still in his seat, thrown clear of the fuselage, one white-gloved hand gripping his ceremonial sword. The jungle around him is completely silent. Japan announced his death weeks later. State funeral, posthumous promotion, national mourning. The Americans said nothing about how they found him. The broken code kept delivering Japanese secrets for 2 more years, and in the naval archives in Tokyo, Yamamoto's letters still exist today. Warning after warning, prediction after prediction, every single one of them correct. He was right about the sleeping giant. He was right about the 18 months. He was right about the carriers. He was right about all of it. It didn't save him. It didn't save Japan. Sometimes being right about everything is the loneliest thing in the world.